Hey guys, how are you all doing this week? Hopefully everything's going well and you're able to get your work done and everything. Hopefully everything's going well at home and stuff too. You're not bored out of your mind, stuck in a house or anything. Um, I'm pretty bored, if you want me to be honest. Maylee and I try to get out and take a walk every day, and we're tired of wallowing around in the same stuff. But we got to make the best of it. It's the best it can be. So hopefully you guys are doing well. I miss you all, so send me a text or something every now and then. I'd love to hear from you. So this week what we're going to do is get started into different ways to solve systems of equations. So last week we worked with just substitution and elimination, but there are actually several different ways to find the answer to a system of equations. Okay, this week what we're going to do is start talking about matrices. Okay, I went back and forth. I actually started this video a couple times and decided different ways that I wanted to go at this. Okay, at first I wanted to do 2s and 3s in the same video, and then we were going to do echelon and reduced echelon in the same video. What I've decided to do is just simply today work on 2x2 matrices, or 2x2 systems, so only 2 variables and 2 equations, and only going to regular echelon form, because this will get you ready to be able to move forward with the more complicated stuff, because you'll know row operations better. Okay, so just hang with me. We're going to be working on this for probably this week and next week, so we should be okay. So what we do in a situation like this, we've got this thing called an augmented matrix, and essentially what we do is we take the numbers. Oh, I am in blue. Hold on. What we do is we take just the values. That's probably not big enough. All we want are the coefficients. We're not interested in the x and the y's, the equals, the pluses, the minuses. They will take care of themselves. Positive numbers stay positive. Negative numbers stay negative. So if you had like minus 5y, okay, that would be a negative 5 when you move it over here. Okay, so what we do is we take only the coefficients and we put them in this thing called an augmented matrix. Okay, so I got a 2, a 3, and a 7. Okay, this is an augmented matrix. It's covered by brackets. Okay, there is a little line here that separates the problem side from the answer side. Most people do away with that as they get better at this. So as you'll see me actually do a few of these, I probably won't continue writing that line all the way through it, because you're able to distinguish the left side from the right side, and it's very simple. Okay, so this is called an augmented matrix. There are regular matrices. They don't have an answer column. So this answer column over here is what makes it an augmented matrix, adding it in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be doing these things called holy cow. We're going to be doing these things called row operations in order to get this into echelon form. Okay, so we'll do a series of row operations, and echelon form will look like this. It will be the same size bracket, which mine is bigger. You'll notice throughout the video I'm terrible at making these brackets. 1, 0, 1, okay? And the rest are numbers. So this is echelon form. Echelon form consists of 1s on the diagonal and 0s underneath it. Okay, so what I have here is I have a 1 in the first position, I have a 1 in the second spot in the second equation, and a 0 in everything underneath. It becomes more apparent moving forward, because like a 3x3, it would be 1, 1, 1 with zeros under it. Okay, so there are more zeros. And then as you get larger, 4s and 5s and 6s, all you have to do is keep in mind 1's on the diagonal and then 0's underneath it. Okay, so that is echelon form. That's our goal. This is our goal for today. Okay, so let's take a look at example 1 here. All right, I'm going to put it into an augmented matrix. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 7, and 2, 1, 8. Okay, remember my goal was to get 1's on the diagonal and then 0's underneath. Now, there's a specific order that needs to happen. Let me scroll you back up here and show you that specific order. This guy up here has to be first. Okay, getting that top one is first. After you get a 1, get all zeros below it. So the 0 underneath it would be second. Okay? After you get a 1 and all zeros below it, move on to your next one. So this one would be third. Okay. As we start getting into larger ones, like we are going to next week, it will be important that you keep that order. 1 and all zeros under it, then 1 and all zeros under it, and then just continue on. Okay, so back down here to our example, my first goal, let me get this to where you can still see it, is to get that 1 in the top left corner. Well, hip hip hooray, we're there. Okay, so this problem already laid it out for us. It was helpful to us. It already gave us the 1 in the top left corner. Okay, so my next goal was to get a 0 under it. Okay, so I've got to come up with a row operation that will allow me to get a 0 underneath that 1. Okay, some of you that have taken pre-calc do have an idea of what I'm talking about. Some of you have no clue what I'm talking about. So here's a row operation that would work. If I multiply row 1 by 2, and then I subtract row 2 from it. Okay, that sounds crazy right now, but it's not. It's going to get better as we go here, I promise. Okay, so basically what I've done is I've said this row operation is going to involve something where I do something to row 1, and then I'm going to write it in row 2. So whatever you end with, whether it's subtract row 2 or add row 2 or whatever you got to do, whatever your second part is here that I've underlined in red, that's where it gets written. Okay, so I'm not doing anything to change row 1 according to this operation. So I've still got 1, 2, and 7. Watch this. I've got 2 times row 1, so I'm going to work on top of each other. So these are going to work together. So I'm going to say 2 times 1 is 2, and then subtract 2. So what I did one more time, I said 2 times 1, I'm drawing an arrow at where I'm talking about, 2 times, I catch myself pointing at it on the other side of the screen, and then I realize you don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll try to draw arrows. I've got 2 times 1, so that is 2, and then I subtract this 2, so the bottom 2. Okay, so 2 times 1 is 2, minus 2 would be 0. Okay, now I've got to do it for the second position. So 2 times 2 would be 4 minus 1. Okay, so minus the bottom number. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 1 would be 3. Okay, now I have to do it for, oh, that is an ugly color. Oh, it's rainbow. Oh, god dog. Now I have to do it for these. Okay, so 2 times 7 is 14, minus 8 is 6. Okay, so congratulations, you've done your first row operation. Okay, and you accomplished part of your goal. You got the 1 in the top left, it was given to you. Then you got the 0 underneath it. Okay, so now the only thing left to do is to get the 1 in this spot right here. Okay, so let's think of some kind of row operation that you could do for that. All right, I'm going to give you a tip. Here's a tip. To get zeros, multiply above line and add or subtract. Okay, to get ones, multiply by fraction. Oh, actually, let me not say fraction. Multiply by reciprocal. Okay, so to get zeros, you're going to multiply the above line by something and either add or subtract. To get ones, all you have to do is multiply by the reciprocal. So if I wanted that 3 to be a 1, I could multiply it by 1/3. So what I'm going to do, my row operation is going to be 1/3 row 2. And again, I've written it as row 2. That's the last part that I've written. So that is where my line will be written. That's where I will put it. So what I'm saying is I've not done anything to change row 1 yet. If I did something to change row 1, if you're confused on what I'm talking about, it would have looked something like 3 row 2 plus row 1. Okay? This would tell me that is writing it in row 1, and that is row 1 that will be changing. Okay? So we've not done anything like that yet. So now 1/3 times row 2, I need to multiply everything in row 2 times 1/3. So I need to do 0 times 1/3. Okay, so that's going to give me 0. And then I need to do 3 times 1/3, which is going to give me 1. And then I need to do 6 times 1/3, which is going to give me 2. Okay? So now let's take a look at it. We are in echelon form. If you can see it, it's still up there on the screen. I got ones on the diagonal and 0 underneath. So I've got ones on the diagonal and 0 underneath. So what does this mean? Okay, what does this mean? Let's put all the x's and y's back in. What this bottom line says is 0x plus 1y equals 2. So 0x is useless. Nobody would write 1 in front of y, right? So this just tells you y equals 2. Then the top line says x plus 2y equals 7. So you know y. Y is 2 right here. That's part of it. So plug that 2 back into your equation. So you got x plus 2 times 2 equals 7. That's a 4, right? Subtract 4. So x is 3. So what this is doing is telling you your x and your y's, and you can answer it as an ordered pair. Okay? So if you didn't catch how we got that, we just put the x's and the y's back in. What it's designed to do in the bottom line is eliminate x completely and just give you 1y. Okay, so like right here, 1y is equal to whatever that number is on the other side. So it's automatically y equals 2, then you just plug it into the top one. Okay? So hopefully you were able to follow that. This is the easy example. So if you want to watch it again, rewind me and watch me again. If not, we're going to do a little bit of a tougher example. Okay? So this first one. Yeah, let's get that off the screen so we can see everything. I'm going to first put it into an augmented matrix. So I got -2, 3, and 8. And I got 5, 4, and -20. All right, my first goal, if you remember, all the way up here on our goal is to get a 1 in the top left corner. Remember our order. Get a 1 in the top left, then a 0 underneath it, then a 1 to the right. Okay? Hopefully you guys are able to follow me. On the board, I'd have this over to the side, and we could just point at it and stuff. I'm struggling a little bit on this lesson, getting you to... This is it's a tough topic. It really is. Okay, so if you have questions, please let me know. So we need to get a 1 in the top left corner. Remember my tip, I told you to get a 1, multiply by the reciprocal. To get a 0, multiply the line above or something, and then subtract or add. Okay, so what we can do here is multiply by the reciprocal. So to get 2 to be a 1, I can multiply by -1/2. So -1/2 row 1. Here's our first row 1 operation. So -1/2 times -2. All right, so look, I'm going to multiply by it there, there, and there. -1/2 times -2 would be 1. -1/2 times 3 would be -3/2, and -1/2 times 8 would be -2. Okay? I did not change row 2, so it stays 5, 4, -20. Now my next goal needs to be to get a 0 underneath that 1, so in that 5 position. So remember our tip, to get a 1, multiply by a reciprocal. To get a 0, multiply by something above it, and subtract or add. Okay, so here's the row operation I'm thinking of. What if we did 5 row 1 minus row 2? That would be 5 times 1 is 5, minus 5 would be 0. Okay, so I've not changed 1, so 1, -3/2, and -2. So I'm going to do 5 times 1 is 5. Let me get this down a little bit. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 5 would be 0. So now I've got to do it to the second spot. I got to do it here. 5 times -3/2 is -15/2. I'm going to do this one on the calculator. 5 times -3/2 is -15/2, and I've got to subtract 4, which would be -23/2. Well, I'm in red. That's okay. Okay, and I got to do it to the last one as well, so I got to do it here also. So 5 times -2 is -10. Then I got to subtract -20, which will give me regular 10. Okay, let me get back to black. All right, so I should only have one more row operation. I think I can sneak it in here on the side. And also you'll notice my brackets get larger and larger as I go. It's just the way it happens. All right, I'm thinking now we need to get that -23/2 into being a 0, into being a 1. Remember, to get 1s, we can just multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm thinking -2/23 row 2 would be our best row operation there. because it's not going to change 1, row 1. But what it will do is give me that times 0 is still 0. Negative 23 over 2 times negative 2 over 23, those are reciprocals, so they cross out basically, so it gives you 1. And then I've got to do negative 23, negative 2 over 23 times 10. I'm going to have to calculate. Negative 2 over 23 times 10 is negative 20 over 23. Something is wrong there. Let me make sure that 10 is correct. Okay, so so negative 2 times 5 would be negative 10, and then I've got to subtract negative 20, so that definitely is 10. Let me make sure negative 2 is right real quick. How did we get negative 2? We multiplied by negative 1/2. Oh, I'm sure you all were screaming at me through the phone. This is not, okay, let me show you. This right here is not negative 2, it's negative 4. Okay, so negative, I'm going to write over it, negative 4. So this would still be negative 4. So then that's going to change that 10. Let me change it real quick, okay, and then we can rebound. So I've got negative 4 times 5, and then I've got to subtract negative 20. Okay, so that gives me 0. Okay, I'm sorry, I messed up. You know I mess up sometimes, and most of the time in class you catch me. So I'm on my own here. I don't have anybody catching me. Okay, Maylee doesn't know math yet, so she can't help out much. So still, when I multiply 0, so now I'm multiplying 0 by negative 23 over 3 gives me 0. So now you're probably panicked. You're like, oh my gosh, I got 0, 1, 0. No, that's not a big deal. Let's output it. Okay, so I have 0x's plus 1y equals 0. So that tells me y equals 0. Okay, so now let's take the equation for our top line, which would be x minus 3/2 y equals negative 2. Okay, I'm plugging 0 in for y. So that's x minus 3/2 times 0 equals negative 2. This is gone, so x equals negative 2. And I've got my answer. Negative 2, 0. Okay? I'm sorry I messed that number up. Again, you know I like to have you all do my calculations and stuff like that. It helps keep me in check too. Okay, so hopefully that did not confuse you too much. Okay, let's do one more. I've got one more example for us. I'm going to put this into an augmented matrix. So 3, negative 1, negative 6. 1, negative 3, 6. Okay, so here's a cool row operation that I have not told you about. You can do, holy cow, let me get you back in here. You are fully able to switch the places of rows if you want to. So my row operation here is going to be row 1 switch with row 2. I'm going to show you why in a second. This should be a positive 6 on top. Okay, so I took that bottom line, which was 1, negative 3, 6, and I put it on top. And I took the top line, which was 3, negative 1, negative 6, and put it on the bottom. Why did I do that? Because it gives me a 1 in my top left position already, and I don't have to get any fractions or anything like that. Okay, so now what I can do is just get the 1 underneath it. So I'll probably do 3 row 1 minus row 2, because that would be 3 times 1 minus 3 is 0. Okay, so now I'm in great shape. If I did it the other way, I would have been messing with fractions right now. So 3 times 1 is 3, minus 3 is 0. 3 times negative 3 would be negative 9, minus negative 1, that's plus, so negative 8. I'm going to calculate that just to make sure I didn't screw it up. Negative 3 times 3 minus negative 1. I screwed up on the last one, now I'm gun shy. All right, so negative 8. And then our last one, I got 6 times 3 minus negative 6, which would be 24. All right, and we're almost done here. I don't need to do anything to the top, but what I do need to do something to is the bottom. Okay, so I need to multiply by negative 1/8 times row 2, because that's going to get me that 1. So that times 0 is 0. Negative 1/8 times negative 8 is 1. And negative 1/8 times 24 is negative 3. Let's output this. The bottom line tells me y equals negative 3. Top line is x minus 3y equals 6. So y is negative 3, so I've got x minus 3 times negative 3 equals 6. That's going to be a 9er, right? X plus 9 is 6. Subtract 9. X equals negative 3. So I've got my answers. Whoops. Oh, I was almost there. I was so close. This thing drives me insane when it changes around like that. Negative 3, negative 3. Okay? So, hopefully you were able to follow along with me in our little endeavor here for finding out how to use systems of equations, or how to use matrices to solve systems of equations. I'll scroll back out here to where you can see everything in case you want to look it over one more time. So let's talk about our goals. Okay, we need to get ones on the diagonal and 0 below it. All right, and if you notice where we stopped on all these problems, we had ones on the diagonal and zeros below it, and then we just wrote our x's and our y's back in and back solved it for whatever we needed. Okay. Remember your tips. To get a 0, multiply by the line above and then add or subtract. Okay. To get a 1, multiply by a reciprocal. Don't try to add or subtract to get a 1, and don't try to multiply by a reciprocal to get a 0, because it's not going to work. Oh, by the way, you can't just multiply a whole line by 0 to get a 0, because that negates the whole thing. Okay. So there are some special situations to these. I chose not to put any in your problems today. The special situations are, you can have a line turn all zeros. Okay, so like 0, 0, and then your answer column would be 0. Okay, so that basically means all real numbers, because anything will work, so there will be infinite answers. You can also get like 0, 0, 1 or something like that. Okay, so that would be no x's, no y's equals 1, and that would be inconsistent, so there would be no solutions to that. Okay, so I chose to leave those out. We may bring them in next time. So I've made a CUDA worksheet for you. I'm sure you saw it because I uploaded it right underneath the video link. I did not really like the problems in the book because they got really hard really quick. So we're going to do these basic ones. Hopefully you're okay with it. If you have any questions, ask me. Okay. So if you want to look at, you're on YouTube now. So if you want to look up other videos, this is called Gauss-Jordan elimination. Gauss Jordan. Gauss-Jordan elimination. So if you want to look some of those up, they'll be in the book. I'm sorry, they'll be on YouTube if you want to watch somebody else do a video of it or something, if you didn't get anything from me. Okay, so hopefully you're okay. Good luck on the problems. Please, again, let me know if you need anything, and I can help you. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys next week.